Hello guys, how we all doing? Welcome back to the channel off the underside. It's another day and we've got plenty to talk about. We're joined this week by a friend of the show, a friend of ours. He's a big Man United fan, he's a podcaster. We've spoken to him several times. My big friend Dan Bateman. How are you doing, Dan?
Yeah, all good, mate. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to chatting some Man United stuff with you and having a good catch up.
Defo, mate. I mean, obviously there's always lots to talk about with Man United, isn't there? You know, there's never a dull moment. So
Yeah,
so basically the last time we spoke, you know, I think it was the Europa League final, wasn't it? So obviously that was a bit of a kind of
it
a
was.
disappointment, for you, mate. So anyway, a lot's happened since then. You've got some new players in, starting a new season. First of all, what do you make of the start of the new season, mate?
Yeah, I mean, it's been mixed, hasn't it? I mean, the City game was a bit of a throwback to the United that we've seen the last few years, where they just threw the towel in, got played off the park, and City were probably comfortable. But I think there was positives against Arsenal first game. That then they stumbled against Fulham. It's typical Man United at the moment. We don't know what we're going to get every week. I know Chelsea went down to 10 men on Saturday, but in general, I thought United played well for the first half of that game, all over Chelsea. Even I know they had 10 men, but like we were still comfortable. We were creating chances. But then as soon as Chelsea, obviously United went down to 10 men themselves, and Chelsea got a bit of a foothold in the game, you could see United, revert back to old ways of sitting deep and trying to protect the lead type thing. And I just think sometimes the shackles need to be off a bit, and they seem to be a bit restricted sometimes.
Hmm. I do think there's been any players that has shown any improvement, or is there players that's just struggled really, really badly so far?
Yeah, I mean, on Saturday, I think in general as a team performance, they were all pretty good, I think. But in general, there's been games where Bruno Fernandes, for me, the Arsenal game, the corner that we gave away for their goal was his fault, trying to mess around in the box. Missed a penalty at Fulham, gave the ball away. He's been, a bit of a mixed bag. Obviously, scored the winner against Burnley. I think he's been disappointing by his high standards. I think there's other players as well, but again, they don't necessarily have the same, high ceiling as Bruno. So Luke Shaw, he's been very mixed as well. He was really poor against City. You could make an argument that all three goals were his fault, or he had a part in the goals. But I thought he was really good against Chelsea. Just a very mixed bag, I think. And Buemo and maybe De Ligt have probably been our most consistent throughout the games. I think they've probably been the only ones that have done themselves proud throughout every game, even in the defeats. And Buemo was the only one who looked like he was going to do anything against City. And I think De Ligt's the best defender at the club, personally.
Right. See the style of play, has it changed much for last season, or is it pretty much
Just
the same old try, same old, same old?
Just the same, mate. Honestly, like I'm not a hypocrite, right? So I've spoke to you guys about Rangers and Russell Martin and playing this fancy style of football and only playing that way. I've done it with ex-Carlisle managers, which is my local team, Mike Williamson, who's also at Rangers with Russell Martin. They've got this rigid way of playing and they want to play that way, and they'd rather lose 5-0 playing that way than change it up and try and adapt and get 3 points. And Rúben Amorim, in my opinion, falls under that same bracket. It might work out, it might not. We don't know. Obviously, we can't tell the future. But I think for me, he has to be able to adapt. I'm not saying he has to change the formation fully, but in certain games, he needs to realise that maybe that isn't working. So then the Grimsby game in the Cup was a perfect example. It wasn't working. So, but he's got this really horrible habit of just changing the centre halves for the sake of changing them. You lads have played FIFA over the years, where sometimes it's just you just change them for the sake of changing them, for freshen the legs or something. It's like they're not actually making any tactical changes. They're just swapping Maguire for Lenny Yoro, or somebody else is coming on for Mazraoui. Dallow's coming on, and it's just like for like substitutions because he doesn't want to change.
What did you make of the summer signings? Obviously, we've had a discussion about this in the past, mate. I wasn't impressed, in Buemo. I know you're saying he's played well in that, but if you want to get to the next level, in my opinion, you're going to have to get better than him. But you've got him, you get Cunha, obviously a big plus. I'm sure you'll be delighted to say Zanana's away, because I know that a lot of Man United fans were getting a wee bit sick of him. But what did you make of the actual transfer window as a whole, mate?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the outgoings were pretty good. Notoriously, over the last decade, we've been rubbish at getting rid of players. There's players there now that have been there for a decade, like Luke Shaw. who is either injured or very inconsistent, and he's been there for a decade. You know, we had it with Phil Jones, Martial, where half the time they're injured and they just see out the contract. So the fact that they managed to get rid of Anthony, Sancho, I mean, some of them are obviously only on loan, but Sancho, Rashford, Garnacho, Anana, a lot of players that weren't pulling the weight or they weren't, you know, the right fit for Amorim. I think that's a good sign. I think the incomings, I worry why we didn't sign a midfielder. I'll be honest. I think we've went front heavy, so we've obviously signed Sesko. Again, time will tell with him. I do worry for him just because we've seen it with Hoyland, and it's not necessarily that they are a bad player. They're not getting service, and you know yourselves, lads, like you watch football, and if strikers aren't getting the ball, what are they meant to do? They're just running channels and chasing lost causes and things like that. So, but for me, I think we said, Jamie, didn't we? I think it was on TikTok we were on about it, and Buemo and Cunha, I think, are good signings for the level that United are at. And I get what you're saying about getting to the next level, but I think for how poor United are right now, I think that's exactly what they needed. They needed people that are proven in this league. They needed people. Again, still early days. Cunha's been injured, but signing. I remember. I think I said to you, my argument was, I remember when Liverpool were struggling like United are, and they'd go to Southampton and sign Lallana or Ricky Lambert or somebody like that, and it's like it's not the big signing that a club of Liverpool stature would need to get to the next level, but it was maybe what they thought was right at the time. And I agree with you. I don't think United need to even be looking at Champions League football this season. I think if they somehow manage to get into any European football of any description, I think that's a massive overachievement from where we're at, and that says how bad we are. That's not me saying that the standards are really low. I just think we're really poor. We're a really poor side.
I know what you're saying with the signings and that, right? But my thinking is, right, I think it's similar to Rangers, right? I've been saying this for a wee while now as well. Like, I think that Man United have forgot that they're Man United. You know, it's like, okay, Mbeumo, good player, Cunha, decent player, you know, average to okay players, right? But what stopped Man United from going to get like Alexander Isak? Why no try that? You know, I don't know whether they're even in the market for these guys now, or you know, but why is it that we need to go down the road of Mbeumo and you know these guys? They're Man United. You know, just go and get top players.
I think again, and I think maybe 7-8 years ago, post Fergie, I think the we're Man United thing worked. There was a lot of pull. There still is some pull, but it's nowhere near what it was. And then you look at the financial situation. We generate a lot of money as a club because of obviously the stature, the fan base, the revenue that we make, but we're also in a ton of debt. You know, we're lumbered with that, so you have to be careful. I mean, unless you're Manchester City, you've got to abide by the rules. You know, and it's like I think you've seen it with Villa this season. Emery's under pressure. They haven't won a game so far this season, and they can't buy players. They've had to sell some of their better players over the last few years to try and just break even. And I think United, it's like they could go and say, right, we'll offer you 120 million or whatever it was for Isak. Why would Isak want to come to a club that hasn't got Champions League football? And then if it's United and Liverpool, if you're even me as a United fan, if you're just looking for your career and an attractive prospect for the next 5 years, where would you rather go? Probably Liverpool, and that pains me to say that, but you look at what Liverpool's built and you look at where United are at. It's more of a long-term plan with United, whereas Liverpool will be immediate success.
I was thinking, I thought Jamie was going to touch on a wee bit. Like, do you think Man United, just like Rangers, they kind of need English players? Like, they understand how big Man United really are and the league that they're in. They know the league and they know how to play against the Brentfords. And like you said, there's always Brentford, Brighton. They kind of teams always there's like a banana skin. So it was like, do you think you need more of those players instead of like going for the Sescos and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a balance. I think Ineos have made it clear that they want to go for younger players and build, which is obviously highlighted in Sesko, the goalkeeper Lamans as well, obviously, who hasn't played yet. But for me, I think there's a real mentality problem at the club, even still now, and that's with Rashford going and, the people that potentially were looked at as the problem. I think you look at the weekend there, Garnacho was getting an absolute pasting off the fans for the way he left Man United after, you know, coming through the youth team and everything. And then Amad Diallo's posting pictures with him on Instagram after the game, and it's like, read the room, lads. Like, you know, it's like, I'm not condoning the abuse that he got and stuff, but he's deleted it all. So he knew it was wrong because he's deleted it all. So, you know, and you just think, I think there's a mentality problem. And just to touch on the Brentford side, I always use them as an example. I think United will always turn up in certain games. So I was relatively confident with the Chelsea game on Saturday because it's the kind of game United will turn up and get a result. I worry about Brentford away on Saturday. I worry about Sunderland at home the week after, because we've had this really bad habit over the last few years of beating the good teams, and then when someone comes with a low block and we can't break them down, the heads drop, they run out of ideas, and we start reverting back to the old ways of Bruno Fernandes shooting from 40 yards. And you know, you see a lot of the good teams where they just recycle possession. Liverpool do it well, Arsenal do it well, and keep it going. Whereas United will panic and just shoot from 40 yards. And it, you know, fair enough, some might go in, but it's a rarity they're going to go in.
I just want to get to this point, like from the Gorgie Boys podcast. For so many years, teams used to fair play Man United, but the fear factor is long gone. But the thing is, it's like, just harping on about my point earlier, you know, about Isak and that. Obviously, if it's between Liverpool and Man United at the moment, you know, you're going to go to Liverpool 100 times out of 100, right? But see if Man United actually went out and just got some top players from teams who maybe aren't in the Champions League or whatever, right? That would give other players the incentive to go to Man United. I know you're saying there's no so much pool, right? But if you start buying players of the top level again, you know, and there is players out there who would come to Man United who aren't at top clubs or whatever. You know, look at Wirtz, who's just went to Liverpool, right? All right, he's not started well, but again, how could Man United not go out and get him? You know, it's like, and then if you see guys like him going to Man United, then other players will go, right, okay, they're starting to actually go out and get players who are at the level where they should be again.
Yeah, and I agree to what you're saying, Jamie, to be fair, to an extent, but I think as well, you've got to remember, like, it's been a long time since Fergie left, and you think, we've done that, you know, we went and got Pogba, went and got Lukaku, went, you know, under Mourinho, Zlatan. I know he was coming to the end, but it was still a big name, and it was like, wow. You know, I remember when we had Louis van Gaal, and we had a front four of Rooney, Di Maria, Falcao, and Van Persie, right? And it's like, this team means business, right? And they were rubbish. They were rubbish. Like, I remember getting beat. I think they got beat 5-3 at Leicester from being 3-1 up or 3-2 up or something. And just like I said, they've done the big name thing. And I think sometimes if Ineos have got this long term plan, and it might work out, it might not. You know, it's not for me to say right now, but for an immediate reaction and an immediate improvement, it's not going to work the way they're doing it. We might notice in 4 or 5 years' time, but then how far gone are Man United going to be in 4 or 5 years' time? So it's a risky plan, in my opinion, because it's not just United getting worse as well. Everybody else is getting better as well.
You touched on it a wee bit with the transfers that you're trying to get in young. Do you think that would be more get them in young, have them a couple of years and try sell them for a profit so it would take away a bit of the debt? Do you think that's the way Man United are probably thinking?
I'll be honest, yeah. I think Ineos are businessmen first and foremost. They're not. You know, Jim Ratcliffe makes out he's a Manchester United fan and all that, but he's a businessman first and foremost. He'll look at that debt and, you know, that red line, and he'll be thinking we need to make money. And I think he'll be looking at it, either we sign these lads, like, you know, relatively cheap, like Lamins, and either he'll be United's goalkeeper for the next 10 years, so they don't have to, you know, invest in another one, or if he's not that great, or, you know, they can move him on and get a profit. I don't know, but yeah, for me, their plan isn't going to be any kind of success for the next few years, and that's worrying, really, because, like I say, everybody else is improving. Like I say, Liverpool have built a super squad where I watched them at the weekend, and they were bringing Wirtz and Isak on, like nearly 300 million between them, you know, coming off the bench in a Merseyside derby, and it's like, yeah, like that's just light years ahead of anywhere where United can dream of at the moment.
Do you think using that, like, Man United as a stepping stone, do you think that would be successful? I know it might sound disrespectful to Man United fans, but like, it's kind of like up here with Celtic. Like, people are like, oh, Celtic are this massive club, blah blah blah. But See, really, there's probably bigger teams like you're saying, like Barcelona's, Real Madrid's. They say a couple of years, then you can probably go in there. Do you think you
I'm
should?
not having. I know what you're saying, Corey, but I'm not having Man United as a stepping stone.
I know
It's
that's what I
not.
mean. It's like
I
it's
know what you're saying
mental.
though, but that's what
I
people need to forget. It's Man United.
I know,
I,
but
I I agree. I agree with what you're saying, Corey. I think United at the moment, in its
uh,
current form, is closer to an Everton or a
mm,
West Ham or something like that than they are to the elite level. I think
that's
the
what I
gap's
mean.
that big. So in that context, then yeah, I think so. I mean you've just got to look at like some of them players that have left that I mentioned.
Mm,
Garnacho, you could argue's upgraded and went to Chelsea. Rashford's definitely upgraded and went to
mm,
Barcelona, which I think is absolutely criminal that he's got an upgrade of a move after the way he carried himself on. I think that's absolutely criminal. You look at Hoyland, McTominay when he left, both going to Napoli, playing Champions League football. McTominay's just finished, was it 18th in the Ballon d'Or?
mm,
You know, things like that. And just certain players to me that weren't good enough for United, but yet they've gone to other places and thrived. So is it United that's the problem? Is it the pressure of the club, the expectancy? I watch a lot of Serie A and I see a lot of comparisons with United and AC Milan, where AC Milan have got a good individual players, but they've got that history, that expectation behind them, but then they just struggle under pressure. And when I watch them and I watch United, there's so many comparisons between them.
nah, true.
No, you are absolutely spot on. I mean, it is. Man United aren't the club they were, but I don't know, it just frustrates me, man, honestly. It just shouldn't be that way. It just should not. It's the same with
It's
Rangers,
like
you
a
know what I mean? It's like,
nostalgic thing. I think Jamie
no,
Moore is
no,
quite
I don't think so, mate. I think
because
it's just the fact.
you're thinking Ronaldo, you're thinking Beckham, you're thinking the Roonies, but like Dan says, like in current in the current state it is probably closer to
As,
the Everton and stuff like that. It does sound bananas because when I was thinking it, I was like that sounds mental using Man United as a stepping stone because it's like that's people's
aye.
dream. Most of the time is like I want to play in the top clubs and it's always Man United is the top club that you think of. But
But
I
how do you get back to that though? How do you, is it just going to take a number of years where Man United go out and buy guys like Mbuemo and that, and then try and go up the league bit by bit, and then
probably.
eventually, where does that end? Where do you start? When does Man United start becoming Man United again?
Again, I worry because I I don't see in the near future United even getting back to challenging for titles. I've heard people saying, "Oh, it could be 5 years," and I'm like, it's already been 12.
Mm.
So since the last won a league title, you can count the FA Cups and the Carabao Cups and things like that, but the last trophy of proper, note was the Premier League in 2013, and it's like they've obviously got by on Europa League wins and things like that. But I really thought the Europa League final against Spurs. I think I said to my dad at the time because we were watching it together, and I said to him, I was like, it really felt like a changing moment. Like a lot of people give Spurs a lot of abuse and criticism about bottle and big occasions, never quite getting over the line and things like that. And I did say at the time, and again maybe a bit in the heat of the moment, but I still kind of stand by it. And I think maybe United are now that team that just don't get over the line anymore. And there's big occasions and it gets to them and they can't handle it. And I think until there's a massive overhaul of the players that have been there for a while now. So again, Harry Maguire's a great centre half. Luke Shaw can be good on his day. Bruno Fernandes, but you've got to remember these players have sacked multiple managers. Like Amorim could go. I'm sure you're going to ask me about that as well at some point, but he could go as well. And it's like so. Then Bruno Fernandes is now seen off 4 managers. Luke Shaw's seen off about 6. Maguire's then seen off about 4. I mean, that's including Ranić of his caretaker charge. And it's like, at what point are we going to start just looking at the players and thinking maybe it's just too big for them? They can't take United back to where they need to be.
Without a doubt. I mean, this goes back to like you were saying about the players moving on like Rashford and these guys who are moving on and they're performing a lot better. This goes back to like when Ronaldo was doing that interview with Piers Morgan and he was just saying, everything when I went back was the same, the gym and the facilities and it's like there's got to be a problem with inside the club.
Mm.
It's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the Ronaldo interview, I didn't agree with him doing it at the time. I think it sets a dangerous precedent, but because he's Ronaldo, he kind of is allowed to do it because it's Ronaldo, and I think the United fans hearing it, I think we all knew it, but to hear it from the horse's mouth and hear it from Ronaldo, it was like, wow, this is actually true. And I think the club, again, there's a lot of parallels with Liverpool. When Liverpool went through their dry spell, it's like you're living in the past all the time. I remember years ago laughing at Liverpool saying, "Oh my God, the History Channel club," and going on about the past all the time. And that's what we are now, talking about the past all the time. I'm always there saying, "Oh, I remember it well." Like when you see like Liverpool score a late goal, seen Arsenal score one yesterday, late goal, and it's like, "Oh, I remember when we used to do that." In big games. I remember that. Now we roll over and get beat 3-0 and get our bellies tickled. It's just like I just don't get it. Like, and it's painful to watch, to be honest with you, because so there's some games where I know my dad, he's supported them since the 60s and the 70s, and he always says to me, "Oh, I've seen us get relegated, and it's not been this bad," because you've got to take into account the money they're on, the pedestal that they all get put on now, and he's like the teams that got relegated actually put more effort in than the team we see now.
Definitely, mate. Sorry, Corey.
You go.
Gorgie Boys podcast. Is it a worry for Dan that Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man City could get even stronger over the next few years, and United can't close the gap?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I already said, didn't I? But it's not just United declining; everybody else is improving, and that's not just the big boys. That's the ones that I always say, the three Bs. I mean, I know Brentford maybe might struggle this year because they lost the best players and the manager, but Bournemouth flying, Brighton beat City already this season. You look at them teams. Everton seem to be building a decent side with Grealish and people like that. I think there's teams that are improving, and like I say, when I remember, not even the Fergie days, but let's say Mourinho, you played pretty much anyone at Old Trafford, and you think that's 3 points, comfortable 3 points, and it probably was to an extent. And then now I'm watching it, and I'm looking like Sunderland are coming to Old Trafford in a couple of weeks, and they've started the season well. Wouldn't surprise me if there's a Granit Xhaka masterclass or something like that in midfield. Because, well, to be honest, you could put Stevie Wonder in midfield against our midfield, and he'd probably outrun them. So, honestly, that the midfield's a massive problem. Massive problem.
What would you see as a success for Man United this season?
My initial plan at the very start was some kind of European football. So whether that's eighth, get your Conference League or whatever it is, and a Carabao Cup run. Obviously, the Carabao Cup's already done, thanks to Grimsby, who, again, massive credit to them, by the way, because they should have been out of sight. It should have been 3 or 4-0. The fact that we got it back to 2-2 and took it to penalties was criminal. They should have been out of sight. So I would have said that originally. Obviously, there's still the chance of an FA Cup run, but like I said to you before we went live, we're only not out of it because it hasn't started yet. So yeah, I would say now if you offered me just like 8th place, Conference League, something along them lines, I would take that. And that's a really sad indictment of where we're at, to be honest. If you imagine in the Fergie days or even the Mourinho days, or the Van Gaal got sacked for finishing 5th and winning an FA Cup, and that you'd snatch the hand off now.
Definitely. Here's one for you, right? Here's to me, this would be a sign of intent. If Man United went out in January and got Semedo for Bournemouth, cracking player. He's doing really well at the moment. To me, he's like like an Eze, that type of player. He likes to take people on. Man United, why can Man United not go and get him?
It's kind of like what Dan was saying, though. It's like what's drawn them, apart from the fact that it's like I'm playing with Man United, and there's like Dan doesn't think they're going to be challenging titles. Loads of players out there once they win any cup going. There's not much to draw apart from the name.
Go and get Semedo. Say to him, listen, we're Man United, right? Okay, we've not been good for the past 8, 10, 12 years. Okay, we've not been the team we were, but our intent here is we're going to get back. We're going to get back to who we are, and we need guys like you to come here. Just a move up from Bournemouth. Come here, fucking. You'll be a first team regular. You'll get in a team. That guy will score you goals. He'll create chances. That's what I'm just trying to persuade these people that you're Man United.
Yeah, I get it, mate. I really do. And Semenyo is absolutely outstanding. I just think for him, he would probably look at it, especially with the way Bournemouth started the season. He might be thinking, hold on, we could be in for some kind of European football here. Maybe he wants to see it through. Again, it depends if you want to throw money at it, obviously. And do United have that money? my issue with the recruitment is they seem to fixate on certain people. So they seem to be obsessed now with Baleba at Brighton. And again, he seems a very good player for the midfield. He obviously is an answer to the midfield, but Brighton won 120 million or something. It's like, why would you not go and get two players for 50 million
Yeah.
apiece? And get two midfielders, maybe both together combined are as good as Baleba is. But it's like you need numbers. It's like at the minute, so Casemiro's now suspended after getting sent off. He seems fixated with playing Bruno Fernandes in the midfield when he can't play there. And it's like, so he's going to have to put Ugarte there because he doesn't fancy Menu either. So it's like Ugarte and Bruno against Brentford away on Saturday already frightens the life out of me.
Talking to Kobe Manu, Graham made a point about that earlier. What's happened to Kobe Manu? He looked outstanding, but he doesn't seem to be starting as much now.
I just think Amorim doesn't fancy him. That can be the only answer. The only game he started this season was the Grimsby game, and he's been coming on like as a last sub as well. So like when you think right, you can make so many subs in the Prem these days, but he literally comes on for the last 5 minutes. That's it. And it's like, and to be fair, when he comes on, he's the best midfielder for us. When he comes on, like he can carry the ball, he can get a foot in. Whereas you look at like Casemiro, legs have gone, but he can get a foot in. Ugarte, I'm not sure on Ugarte, to be honest. He looks poor. He covers a lot of ground and stuff, but he's not going to, progress with the ball and think. Mainu's the only player that fits that profile that'll work in an Amorim system, but Amorim doesn't want to play him. So again, I work that out for yourself because I've got no idea. Manu should be definitely starting in the midfield, and I think for balance, the midfield has to be either Casemiro or Ugarte with Manu.
What's the feeling like being a Man United fan now? Is it just frustration, or is it just like, it's just another season now?
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't speak for everybody. Just for me, I'm probably resigned to another bad season already. We're only in September. The Arsenal game, there was a lot of positives to take, even though we lost that game. On another day, we could have won that game. We had plenty of chances. They only had that one mistake from the keeper. But then we went to Fulham away and played rubbish in the second half. Got played off the park. Obviously, been beaten off Grimsby. Struggled to beat Burnley at home in the last minute. And then obviously City was poor. And then obviously Chelsea again, it was down to 10 men, so hard to judge. But for me, a lot of it is just you watch it more in hope than expectation. Whereas I grew up in an era where United were challenging for titles pretty much every year. You don't realise how blessed you are to be in that position than when you're not. So like now I watch it and I mean, I'll refuse. I know people call it like the kids call it like a hate watch these days, don't they? Where you watch your rival clubs and stuff. I don't even watch Liverpool or anything because it just depresses me. Like like I don't watch City. I didn't watch City Arsenal yesterday because I was like, I don't want to see how good they are because it just reminds me of how far off we are. There's even some United games like the City game. I knocked it off when the second goal went in because I knew it was over.
Does it make it worse that first being a Man United fan, seeing City, and you remember how shite City were at one point, and you're just going, these guys, like, remember they had the roles like Steve Ireland and stuff like that in the
Joey
team.
Barton.
Like, Joey Barton, that was their star players, and now you've got Haaland and that must be weirder, I would say, because you were more, it's just Man City, that derby didn't really mean anything, but now, we need to get the 3 points against them because they're that big now.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, the biggest thing I could use for this was when Grealish became available. I said Grealish is the exact kind of player I could see at United and like revitalizing the attack. With the way he takes people on, draws fouls, the pretty boy look and that kind of stuff. It's like I could see him in a United shirt, but then I did say at the same time I was like, actually, I don't want City selling us their players because that's what we used to do to them when they weren't a threat whatsoever. Because you're like, well, we can give them because it doesn't matter that they're going to finish bottom half or get relegated or something. So I was like, Grealish became available. I was like, I don't want him though because it means if City sell him to us, that they're not taking us serious. I mean, they don't anyways, but it's just a surefire sign that they're not taking us seriously enough.
That's a good question actually. Has anybody went from City to Man United? Michael Owen?
Nah, Michael Owen wasn't at City.
No, he went
He
to
never at
Liverpool.
City. I mean, he was at Liverpool, wasn't he? I thought of it.
Liverpool.
Yeah, he's at Liverpool. I'm trying to think. City to United. No, I don't think so. I think United to City. There was a couple of them. Schmeichel, but
Tevez.
yeah,
Schmeichel,
Tevez,
Schmeichel.
Schmeichel as well, but it wasn't direct. Schmeichel kind of had a mini retirement, went to Sporting Lisbon, then went to City. But if you read Alex Ferguson autobiography, he did ring Fergie for permission first before he went, which is quite funny. So at least a bit of respect there. But yeah, like I don't think there's many. Obviously, Dennis Law played for both as well
No.
back in the day because he played in the game that relegated us to Division 2 at the time.
That's
So
true. That's true, aye.
There's definitely more. I need to think about that one after.
yeah, I'll have to have a think.
Do you think you were talking about Fergie there? Do you think it's that fear that as a manager that has been missing in Man United? Because you wouldn't really say that Amron, you wouldn't see him as like intimidating. Do you think that's maybe a part of what's going on with Man United?
Yeah, I think it's a change in just society in
Like on
general as well, though. Like back in the 90s and 80s and earlier than that as well, you'd have managers that would rule with an iron fist and basically you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing the other. But nowadays with social media and players have got their agents that have got so much to say. Like you've got to like look at like I said, they were called the bomb squad, weren't they? The Rashfords, the Garnachos, going off doing interviews with papers. Rashford did without the club's permission, not turning up for training, going out getting pissed in Ireland when he was meant to be in training the next day. Garnacho wearing the Rashford top. His brother allegedly leaking team news to the Manchester Evening News and stuff. And it's like, how as a manager now do you combat that? Because you're like, other than selling them, what else are you meant to do? Like that would never have happened in the Fergie days. But I do think that's just a change in society in general that these these journalists can just message them privately, on social media and things and be like, oh, have you got a story for me? Or, whereas back in the day, they probably have had to went through Sir Alex to get to the players.
I know. I just think like teams like Real Madrid, Barcelona, even you could say Liverpool. I think there must be like a fear factor somewhere that I kind of like. I don't want to mess this up, and I don't think people feel that way with Man United. Like if you like back in the day, you were a Man United player, you would give everything to be a Man United player. Now people don't really have that respect, kind of for that. Do you think that's probably right?
Yeah, no, that's fair, mate. That's fair. But I think it's always easier to, fall in line when you're doing well. So Liverpool winning the league, Barca and Madrid are always winning something, whether it's a league or a Copa del Rey, or in Real Madrid's case, they win the Champions League seemingly pretty much nearly every year, things like that. So I think it's easier to fall in line. So it was the same with United under Fergie. When you're winning every year, you're going to buy into what the manager's telling you. You're going to buy into the club's beliefs and systems. Whereas when they're sending you mixed system messages, like say you've got people getting left, like Wise Manu been left out. Nobody knows. Amorim hasn't cleared it up. So there might be players in that team looking at going, if that's how they're treating the youth players, that United are well renowned for the way they deal with the youth players. Garnacho's another one, came through the youth system. Attitude problem, had to sell him. Rashford, another one, came through the youth. You're questioning all the Manchester United beliefs, because it's always been a thing where you look at the youth teams and you're like, right, they're going to build from the youth. I think I seen the other day that Manu was the only one in the entire squad that came through the youth system, and there's that record, isn't there? I think, again, the years escape me, but it's like 50, 60 years where they've always had a youth product in the squad. We're getting close to the point now where there might not be. And it's like that is against everything that Manchester United ever was. So it just shows that they're heading in a total different direction, and it's a direction that none of us know, and whether it's going to work.
I want to get to this comment from Graham again. Watching the Arsenal game yesterday, I don't think I've ever seen Pep go defensive before. In all honesty, I wasn't impressed with either team. Liverpool haven't hit the stride, but still win. I agree with that comment about Liverpool. Obviously they've been winning games. They beat Burnley. They beat obviously Everton the other day and that. But that's a sign of me of champions. The fact that they can go these games. Not particularly perform well, especially at the start of the season, and get points. Who is it your prediction is to win the league, mate? Who do we think?
Before the season started, I said Man City because I thought Pep was going to rebuild. they're not going to be as. I mean, I say they were poor last year. I mean, they finished third and got to an FA Cup final. You know, most of us would just dream of that these days. But by their high standards, that was a poor season. So I thought they'll come firing. Then they beat Wolves. Was it 4-0 first game? And I'm like, yeah, these boys look like they mean business. But I buy into winning when you're not playing well. And Liverpool, for me, I've watched the majority of their games. I don't think they've even played anywhere near their best yet. I remember the first game against Bournemouth when they were 2-0 up, then they let Bournemouth back in 2-2, scored a late goal against Atletico Madrid the other night. I was like, again, like I mentioned earlier, I've seen it. You guys have seen it with Celtic as well. When a team's going to win a title, when you're not playing well and you're grinding results, you're scoring late goals, they're going to hit their stride at some point, and they might still have maximum points by the time they've done that. So they could actually win it by an absolute mile.
I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that it's going to be quite tight because you look at Arsenal, that game yesterday, I reckon Arsenal last year lose that game. They get a late equaliser. Obviously, I just think with the signings they've made, Eucharist up front, I think Eze's a cracking player, and obviously they've signed a couple of centre-halves as well, which I think really helps. I think that Arsenal are going to be up there. I think that Man City, as you say, mate, they're hitting form now. We've got Haaland, who's back to being Haaland again, but it looks like he's taking his chances. Chelsea, really, really good team, I think they've got a really good manager. I've got a feeling this could go into the last... I don't know if it'll go into the last game, but I think it'll go into the last couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Chelsea go, I think they're very guilty of being inconsistent. Like I say, they're quite capable of one of them self-destruct button games like they had on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they won't win a league title. I think Arsenal, for me, I think they have the best all-round squad, potentially, when everyone's fit. The only thing holding Arsenal back is the manager. Yesterday, again, if he'd went for it in the first half, Arsenal probably would have won that game. But he went to not get beat again, and he does that in all the big games, and that will eventually catch them up, because I think Gary Neville said it last season when they were celebrating. I think it was a 0-0 draw at City, which in isolation is a good result, but when they do that in every big game, you've got to go and beat these teams to win a league title. Like, do you think Liverpool's going to go to City and play for a 0-0 draw? They're not, are they? They might take a draw at some point, but they're not going to go and set up for a draw. They're going to go to beat them. Spurs went to City. Spurs look a decent outfit at the moment, and it's like Spurs went to City and just took them on and, made forced mistakes, won comfortably. And it's like, if Spurs can go there and do it, why can't Arsenal do it at home to them? I do worry, but I think Liverpool and City will be the top two. Arsenal third. They're comfortably the best three teams in the league. But I think Arsenal, what's holding them back would be Arteta, personally.
I forgot to mention the best team in Europe, mate, Nottingham Forest. They've got the best manager ever to live. So,
Yeah.
I think that they might actually win the chat. No, they can't win the Champions League, but I think they'll definitely win the Premier League. To be honest.
Yeah, could do. Big Ange, yeah. Let's not forget them 22 games he lost in the league last season.
Forget about that, mate. He won a Europa League, man. It's all about Europa League.
Yeah, exactly.
Put all his eggs in the one basket, didn't he?
That's
he
what I mean.
Wins in his second season. Always wins in his second season.
Second season, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Look at last week. Last week was just classic Ange, wasn't it? They go 2-0 up against Swansea. And I didn't even watch the rest of the game. Because I was watching other games on it at the time. And I was like, well, that game's done. Didn't realise till the next morning they give you 3-2, man. Unbelievable. That is classic Ange.
The problem they've got, with Forest, is they've gone from one total different manager to another. So Nuno was very pragmatic, defensive, like, his wing backs and stuff, whereas Ange wants to play a high line, attacking football, full-fledged, quite happily lose 5-4, but as long as it's a good game, stuff like that. And again, both of them have their own place, but the squad's built for Nuno. It's not built for Ange. So I think this season could be a bit of a slog for them. Again, second season though, next season, if he gets it right, wouldn't surprise me if he won an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup or something like that. But I do think initially they might struggle because they want to play that fast football, but they've got Chris Wood up front, and again he scores goals, but he's not going to make them runs in behind and things like that, and stretch defences.
Definitely not. I'm surprised actually the couple of the players he's picked. Actually, Hudson-Odoi he's leaving on the bench, which I'm really surprised about. I thought that's his kind of player,
Yeah, it'd be perfect, wouldn't he? You would think,
Mhm.
unless he's not fully fit or something, because he's quite injury prone, isn't he, Hudson-Odoi? So, but yeah, you'd think he'd be one of the first names on the team sheet in transition for them.
Therefore,
Who would your surprise team be? Who's going to be getting a good few results there and maybe sneak into the top four? Who do you think? Would it be Tottenham?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've already mentioned them. I think Spurs look a decent side. I'm not sure how much of a surprise it is, to be fair.
Mm.
Like, because they're massively. I know let's take the Europa League out, but like the league, they're massively underachieved last year, didn't they? They've got a decent squad and they've added to it. Xavi Simons is unreal. Thomas Frank, manager wise as well. He would have been somebody I would have took at United. I think you know exactly what you're going to get from his teams. They've already picked up, obviously, we said about the City game. They came from 2-0 down at Brighton as well at the week, which is a tough place to go and stuff like that. So I think for me, Spurs potentially. I'm not sure about Newcastle. Again, I think Newcastle are just capable of, because they've got Champions League football as well. I'm not sure the squad's good enough to like have a consistent top four charge or top five or whatever it is these days. But I think Spurs for me, and then I think Brighton as well. I quite like Brighton. I like the manager, and again, it's just I don't even think it's necessarily down to one specific thing. I think Brighton's just a well-oiled machine. They're going to consistently pick up results. They're going to consistently sign players we've never heard of, and then they're going to be sold to Chelsea and United in a year or two's time for 100 million, because that's what Brighton do.
Who's the guy who puts the money in the Brighton again?
Oh, I can't remember.
Tony.
it's Tony Bloom.
Aye, Tony Bloom. Like he's doing that now at Hearts. It's good. I was going to say, do you think Hearts could ever do that? But Jamie, no, he's having none of that. But it would be good to see. I think no. I know we've changed it to Scottish football a wee bit there, but would you not like to see like a team other than Celtic and Rangers maybe winning the league, making it more competitive?
I think that would be massive for the league. To be fair, I think because people like me, who casual viewers, so I only really watch Old Firm derbies just to see if there's any fights and any red cards. Basically, that's generally
Never
my
is any,
viewing. Yeah, I've sometimes watched Hearts and Hibs as well if that's on. Obviously, that's a derby as well. So, but yeah, I think even if someone ran Celtic close one year, whether that was a Hearts or I don't know who else, but somebody like that, then I think it would just give people a bit more reason to watch it. And I think obviously we talked before we went live about Rangers, and I think Rangers at the moment are in danger of doing maybe a Man United and really falling off massively, depending on what they do with the manager. How long do they give him before they change things? And obviously I said as well, obviously from Carlisle, so my local club Carlisle, Mike Williamson's the assistant manager there, or he's a coach or something, and he was the worst thing to happen to my hometown football club in a long time. So if he wants to fail, I'm more than happy to watch that happen.
Relegations and
Tony
everything.
Bloom actually said. Corey's referring to Tony Bloom. Don't know if you've seen the comments, but he says that Hearts could win the league this season, right? It's just no possible, right? Because they don't have the squad. But definitely the way Rangers are playing, obviously under Russell Martin and that, I think they could split the Old Firm within the next, maybe even this year, because Rangers are really, really struggling. But I would like to see it happen myself. I'd love to see another team kind of compete and challenge, as you say. It would be really, really good for the league and that, because we've spoken about this before, Dan, we all know, everybody in Scotland knows we've not got the best product. Everybody realises that the quality is nowhere near, for the Premier League, for instance. But as I said, mate, we've spoken about it before. We've got the passion, we've got the fans, we've got the, because how Corey, what's it like? You know what I mean? Every day in work, you're always talking about football, aren't you? We've got Clyde One up here, Dan, right? And it's basically a football phone every night. And it's just constantly, people phoning up all the time, all the time. It's actually on 7 nights a week now. That's how big it is, you know what I mean? So it's like, we've got the passion in the country, mate, but it's just, unfortunately, we do not have the resources.
I think it's per capita we've got the highest attendances in 3 years in a row in any country in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I grew up in an era of Celtic and Rangers having really iconic teams. I was in the era of Gazza at Rangers, and then the Italian contingent, the Gattusos and Amoruso and people like that, and then Laudrup and then the bit later on with Celtic where it was Larson, Hearts, and Sutton. That kind of strike force. I'm trying to think of the midfielders where it was like Alan Thompson. Alan Thompson was there. There was Didier Gatt as well. I remember him. Yeah, there was like iconic players. Just like I don't know what they did after Celtic. I just remember them being at Celtic. Johan Mialby was the centre half, I think, and it was like proper teams and they'd go far in Europe. They'd do well in Europe. And I remember that. And now we'll watch it, and you see that obviously Celtic were in Europe last year. They got beat 7-1 off Dortmund. Obviously this year you didn't qualify. Was it team from Kazakhstan? Was it beat you on penalties and stuff like that? And it's just not a good look for the league, and that damages the reputation because people will look and go, that's the best team from Scotland, and they've just been beaten by the best team from Kazakhstan. And again, it's damaging because, like say, Celtic fan base, Rangers fan base, even your Hearts and your Hibs, they've got bigger fan bases than some teams that are in the Premier League, the Championship. Like obviously Celtic Rangers, for me, you've got fan bases worthy of being in the Premier League. But even your Hearts and Hibs, there's teams in the Premier League like Bournemouth, no disrespect, but their stadium is relatively small. Brentford are an EFL team by nature that overachieved for a while. There's teams in there, and you think if Celtic and Rangers came in, they wouldn't look out of place on paper. But then obviously when it went onto the pitch, it'd be totally different.
I think that's one of the reasons why it's never happened, mate. Like your Brentford and your Bournemouth and all that, they don't want Celtic and Rangers there because they know if Celtic and Rangers get money, it's a game changer. It's like, as you say, if you've got a choice between Celtic and Rangers or Bournemouth or Brentford or these teams, you're going to go to Celtic, aren't you? If they're in the Premier League, you know what I mean? So it's like
100%.
plus there is the whole sectarian side in it as well, which the Premier League, that they don't want, which I totally understand, to be honest, because I don't want it here either, you know what I mean? But unfortunately, it exists. But that's the thing. It's like, that's the thing. It's if I didn't live it, right? If we didn't live it, Corrie, if we didn't live in this country and all that, right? We would be slagging Scottish football. We would be like, it's not good enough. It's poor. There's only 2 teams that win it every year, and let's be honest, there's only 1 team that win it every year now. So I get it, man. Do you know what I mean? But I don't know what the answer is, though. I have no idea. There needs to be some sort of injection of money or whatever, but it's never. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, just on what you said there, though, I think there's a lot of leagues that are guilty of that as well. I think for me, the reason I don't watch it is just because I don't have a horse in that race. It's not if I had an affiliation, I would I've got an affiliation to Carlisle United. I watch a lot of non-league football at the moment. I host a podcast non-league. If I've got an affiliation to it, I'll watch it. So like,
I'm taking personal offence to this, Dan, because we're your 2 pals now.
Well, yeah, I mean, but
what you mean?
I don't need to watch and cheer. I don't need to watch and cheer Celtic. I know they're going to win, so it doesn't make any difference. I think I seen you were drawing. Was it last week? And it went like into the 93rd minute or something. I went, they'll still win. I was like, and then I looked at Iheanacho scored a penalty or something, and I was like, yeah, I knew they'd win. I knew they would. They always do. But yeah, like I say, for me, I think there's a lot of leagues like the Premier League. There's this myth, in my opinion, that the Premier League is the best league in the world, right? I am not so sure on that. And I say this not from a Man United perspective, I say this as a football perspective. So you said there's only 1 team wins it every year, or 2, if you include the few times Rangers have done it in recent years. But you look at the Premier League, it's exactly the same. And it doesn't matter when you look back to. So in the 90s, it was United Arsenal. Early 2000s, it was United Chelsea. Then it was like United Liverpool, United City. Then it's just been City Liverpool with a couple of Chelsea sprinkled in here and there. It's the same in the Premier League. Just there's more eyes on the product because there's more money involved.
That's a good topic, actually, because what actually
6 teams have won the Premier League. I think Blackburn's the only one that's not in the Premier League that's won it.
Yeah, and Blackburn only won it because they threw money at it at the time.
Yeah.
What actually makes a league the best? Do you know what I mean? Because you look at La Liga as well, it's only 2 teams that win that. So what is it? The entertainment? Is it the quality? If you're going on quality, I think the Premier League is. But what's the most entertaining?
Yeah, I mean 100%, like quality wise, and I think on the basis of anyone can beat anyone on any given day, I think the Premier League is the best for that because, like we mentioned earlier, Bournemouth could turn up at Old Trafford or the Etihad and win 2-0, and it'd be a bit obviously if they went to City and won, it'd be like, oh, that's a win, but then like actually Bournemouth are flying at the minute. Like I'm not surprised, Whereas you look at like you said, Spain there, and it's like Real Madrid, Barcelona, again, very similar to the Celtic Rangers thing, where it's if anyone else ever won it. I remember when Atletico Madrid won it one year under Simeone, and it was like, whoa, this is a turn up for the book. I'm old. I don't know about you lads, but I'm old enough to remember when Valencia won it with Benitez, and they had that iconic team, and everyone remembers them players from that team because like, oh, that was a flash in the pan. Someone but it got more eyes on the product. It's like Italy. I think for me, I've loved Serie A football for a long time, but the standard isn't there. But again, I think any given day, any given team can beat each other, and that's what I quite like about the league. It might not be the best in quality. I think Serie A has become a bit of a retirement home these days. I think Modric has gone there at 40 years old. De Bruyne has gone there on his latter years. But in terms of AC Milan play Inter Milan, and you don't know who's going to win, even though Inter are the better side and they always do well in the Champions League. AC Milan will turn it on in that game. So I think for me, the Premier League is the best league in the world for competitive football and anyone beating anybody. But I think it's a bit of a myth that it's just the best league in the world as a blanket statement, personally.
I would say it's Bundesliga because I feel, see, if you take Dortmund and Bayern Munich out of the equation and you just pick two German teams and watch them, I think you've got a perfect game of football. But I think sometimes if you've got like Brentford versus West Ham, it could be an absolute dud of a game. I think there's less chance that, in my opinion anyway, that it's going to be in German football. You can pick any random team and it would just be, this is an outstanding game of football. I don't know if that's quality or is it's just the way it is in Germany, the way the football is, but that's my personal opinion.
I mean, it depends what you look for in your football. For me, I look for entertainment. Like I say, I watch a lot of non-league football, so obviously it's not on the standard of what you see at Anfield or the Etihad and things like that. But I'll watch games that are 4-4, 4-3, mistakes on the pitch or worldies from the halfway line and things like that. Things that don't get tried anymore, at the high levels because there's too much money involved. So remember the iconic Beckham halfway line, the Rooney halfway line. There's not many of them get scored in the Prem anymore because people they want to play the Pep way and pass people to death.
That actually brings me on to a good point, and I was just about to bring on to there, mate. Hold on, let me get to this question first with Graham.
Yeah.
Right. Graham says, what does Dan think about the situation with Isak and Visa basically down in tools to get moves? Is player power starting to get more of a problem now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a problem at Manchester United for a long time. But yeah, I worry about this because Mark Gahey done everything right at Palace, played his games, turned up for training, wanted his move to Liverpool, didn't get it. Isak and Wissa, down tools, put social media statements out. Well, I think Isak did. Wissa just deleted all his Brentford stuff, and basically sat on their asses at home and done nothing and got the moves. So that for me now the precedent's been set. So you watch now in the coming years, come January, if someone wants out of a club, they'll just stop turning up for training, won't they? And put posts out on social media and force the move through. And then in the end, the club will have no choice but to sell them. So it's worrying because, like I say, I've seen it at United for a while, but when it's happening at other clubs as well, that maybe just is the precedent now, and players are going to have to do that.
I agree with what you're saying, mate, right? But I was thinking about this, and obviously, ideally, right, in an Isak situation, a Visa situation, you want them to play for the club, you want them to play for, Newcastle at the time, give his all, same with Visa at Brentford and that, right? But kind of in a way, I think that, Newcastle fans need to think, Isak, right, decided I'm not playing, right? Would you rather have Isak saying that, being open and honest and just saying, listen, I want my move, I'm not playing, or being on the park for Newcastle and not really trying? You know what I mean? Because we've seen that at Celtic, mate. With Edward and all that when they wanted their moves, it was so obvious. You know what I mean? So I kind of was thinking, Isak just was honest and just went, you know what, my heart's not going to be in that. I want to move.
Yeah, I think there's a line in between obviously what I said and what you said. I think somewhere in the middle would be like a happy medium. I remember Carlisle United years back. We had a striker called Danny Graham. You'll know Danny Graham from when he was at Swansea and that. It scored 14 goals before December in 1 year when we were in League One, and then he wanted a move and we didn't give him it, and then he didn't score another goal from then till the end of the season. I mean, make of that what you will, but I'm just saying. You know, again, no offense, Danny, but I remember it well. And then he did get his move in the summer after that. But yeah, I think there's got to be a line somewhere. So I think fair enough if he doesn't want to play, but I think you've still got to, you're under contract at that club. So for me, you've still got to turn up and do the basics. Imagine in any walk of life, in any other job, you've got your eye on another job, or you want to move to another shop that you work at or whatever. You're not just going to stop turning up and put stuff on social media, basically saying that the company's let you down. Imagine doing that in your lad's job, you know, just social media. The company's let me down. I want to move to this shop, not that shop, or I want to drive this van or that van. I just think when you put it into context, I think the way they went about it. Again, I get the honesty and I appreciate it, but also from a club perspective, Newcastle aren't under any obligation to sell him. You know, he's under contract. He knew the deal when he signed it. And I think personally, he's probably made a mistake because I think Isak could have done another year at Newcastle, maybe then went to Liverpool. And I think his game time, because Ekitike started well. I think and the way they play, it's not all going to go through Isak like he did at Newcastle. So a bit controversial, but I think he's maybe made a mistake.
No, I agree with you when it comes to like you wouldn't do that in any other walk of life. You know what I mean, that we wouldn't do cryptic messages on Facebook and all that. Jamie and liking other plumber merchants and all that stuff and sending about.
Might
No, I
try
mean,
right enough. You never know.
I know, but like screw fix everywhere and all that. No, that's not it. But
But the thing is,
but
though, right?
no, yeah.
Sorry, just getting one last thing on that Isak thing is another thing, but he got them £120 million. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, if you're a Newcastle fan, one, he decided he's not playing because his heart wouldn't be in it, and two, he got them £120 million. So, you know,
But
I get why they would be annoyed and all that, but you know,
it's like what Dan was saying, is like even if he played one more season and says at the end of this season here I want to go,
but he
he
could have broke
still
his
got,
leg, mate, and they wouldn't have made any money.
and that's if buts and maybes, but if he was playing the way he was playing last season, you probably get 150 million. I mean,
That's a
you
gamble,
could have
but
got.
I
I
don't know
mean,
if
take the
you.
120.
I don't know if you remember, but that happened with Ronaldo at United. He wanted to leave in 2008 after we lost the Champions League final in Rome. But Fergie asked him to stay another year and then said, I'll promise you can get your move. Because then I don't think he signed very well to replace Ronaldo, but how do you replace Ronaldo at the time?
fair.
But he said he's like, I just need a bit of time to, plan who I'm going to replace you with. So Ronaldo done another year. Again, the leg break that could happen anywhere. He could have broke his leg the first game for Liverpool, and then the whole move looks like an absolute waste of time. So I think it just depends. I think, but yeah, for me, the precedent's been set. Mark Gahey deserved his move. He's starting for England now. He's probably the best player at Palace. Now Eze's gone, I would say, and I think the fact he didn't get his move when he done everything by the book and right, and Isak and Wissa done everything that you shouldn't do, and they got their move. I think it's set a precedent now, and it wouldn't surprise me in the summer in particular if we don't just start seeing players posting shite on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, whatever, just saying, "Oh, I've done everything I can at the club, and they won't let me move," and try and force the move and things like that. But one thing I will say is I did notice with Newcastle fans, I will call them out on this, that they've said about Isak, called him all the names under the sun, but they welcomed Wissa with open arms.
Aye,
He's done exactly the
he's done
same thing.
exact same thing.
Exact same
Exactly.
thing. So it's a bit hypocritical in my opinion.
Aye. Obviously, you mentioned it, mate. I wanted to get to this point. You mentioned it a wee minute ago about Pep Guardiola, right? Or these kind of managers want to play the Pep way and that. There's a thing that happened up here last week, mate. Chris Sutton actually came out and he tore into St Mirren manager Stephen Robinson, right? Now, Stephen Robinson has got St Mirren a top 6 finish in the last 3 seasons, which is really, really good for their budget and, everything, right? And Chris Sutton basically said, all they do is lump it forward to the big guys, right? And, it's getting a lot of press up here and that. He's come out basically slagging him. But to me, how's that a bad thing? Because why does everybody need to play for the back, play the Pep way? Because no everybody is Pep Guardiola. No everybody has got Pep Guardiola's players. So I think it's about time that we started getting 2 big men up front again, 4-4-2, get the ball up to them. You're not telling me that's not entertaining football, getting the ball up the park, attack it. That's attacking football. You know what I mean? And I'm just Chris Sutton, and he's got a cheek to talk. You know what I mean? Think about it. In the 90s, him and Shearer won the league for Blackburn, as you mentioned earlier, Corey. You know, he was two him and Larsson for Celtic and all that. It seemed to work wonders back then. So why is it a big deal now that a manager in Scotland is deciding to play old school 4-4-2 and get a big man up front? So what's your thoughts on that, Dan? Because I think we've noticed with the football players we've spoke to in the last few months and the ex-players and that, I think more, because we speak about this a lot, I think a lot of them want it back as well. I think a lot of them are sick of this style of play because fair play to Pep, because Pep can do it. Pep's the master of it, but no everybody's Pep. What do you think, mate?
It's killing the game, in my opinion. That this obsession with wanting to play this Pep Guardiola tiki-taka football, again, like I say, not everyone's Pep Guardiola. Not everybody can just decide, well, I'll tell you what, we'll sign a goalkeeper for 50 million from whatever it was from Burnley, and then I'll tell you what, we'll go and sign another one as well just because we can. A midfielder doesn't work out, we'll just sell him and we'll go and buy another one. Not everyone can do that, and I think forcing it on players that can't play that way. So one of the worst ones I seen was Burnley when they were in the Premier League last time, when Company was in charge and they had that Muric in goal, and he was trying to have him playing out like Edison, and he kept making mistakes and it was costing them goals. And yet, we talk about players and that falling on the feet with moves. Vincent Company done that with Burnley and then got the Bayern Munich job. What the hell? And I think it's because, and you said there about lumping it to the two big men, right? So that's their style of play, right? So a manager comes in, I have a distinct style of play, right? What's the difference? Like, if that's the way they want to play and they recruit for that and they have the players to play that way, what difference is that to be playing three at the back and, fanning about with it at the back? And, as long as it's a distinct style of play and he knows what he's doing and he's got the players to do it, it doesn't matter. And I think for me as well, you're seeing it creep back in a little bit in the Premier League as well. Arsenal get a lot of stick for it, but they play a lot for set pieces, long throws, things like that, and people are like, oh, that's all they've got. And I'm like, yeah, but if it works, then I don't mind, Like, they wouldn't have won that game at Old Trafford on the first day of the season if they didn't whip them corners in at the keeper and test the keeper. I think for me, I've seen it in non-league where everyone plays differently, and I like that about non-league because you don't know what you're going to get. Whereas I think you watch City, you watch even your Spurs, your Arsenal, you know what you're going to get every week. They're not going to move from that. Man United are as guilty of it as anybody, and you don't mind if it's working, but when it's not working, it's just the definition of insanity.
Aye. I had a point there. I totally forgot. I should totally forgot. It's gone. It's gone.
Right.
It's gone.
That's all right. We'll move on. We'll move on because
It's
there's not that much
gone.
time left. Dan, obviously you've got your podcast and that, mate. I've been watching quite a good bit of your football one, to be honest, because I'm trying to get into. So I'm trying to get into that league, mate, to be honest with you, because I want Carlisle to do well. You know what I mean? Because I have got a vested interest in your league, mate. You know what I mean? But
nice to call us out on that. Thanks.
Only kidding, mate. Only kidding, mate. Only kidding. But yeah, are you enjoying what you're doing, mate? And what's your plans for the future?
Yeah, I love it, mate. One of the best decisions I made, as most people know who followed me in that, I quit my day job and tried to pursue this as a career. It's still, work in progress, but Be the Best Version of Yourself is my podcast that I do myself, which tackles mental health, addiction, grief, epilepsy, things like that. That's doing really well in terms of TikToks and short form formats, and then I've had guests on the podcast as well. But the football one, National League Lowdown, it's called. We obviously have guests on, so we have supporters of clubs. We're trying to tick every club off because it makes sense to have, if you're going to talk about Tamworth or Yeovil or something, that you have a Tamworth or a Yeovil fan and not the Carlisle supporter talking about it. So we try and do that. It makes us different to other podcasts because you've got to think what's your USP, what's your unique selling point, because you think there's so many podcasts these days, as you guys well know, so you guys getting your guests on and that it makes you different. It's not just the same people talking all the time. So yeah, we've got that on. We've had players on from current clubs. So we had Tamworth's goalkeeper on. We had it was Jazz Singh. We had Casey Petit, who plays for Rochdale. We had him on. We had Max Kretschmar, who plays for Wealdstone. And we've got, I can't name who it is, but we've got an exciting guest this week, so keep your eyes peeled. A current manager in the league is coming on the podcast, so we're really looking forward to that. We've had numerous people actually messaging us to come on, so it's doing really well at the moment. I think we're in 464 subscribers, so we're trying to get to 500 by the end of the month. So if anyone wants to subscribe, please do that. But yeah, plans for the future, more of the same, really. Really focusing on the football stuff at the moment because it's doing so well. We want to really strike while the iron's hot, you know. And I think getting these guests on, some exciting ones coming up, like I say. So me, Craig, and Mark, who do it predominantly. Mark hasn't been on the last couple of weeks, but he's back this week. We've all got like our own, you know, knowledge that we bring. So mine's more like EFL based and learning the National League, whereas Craig's a Braintree fan, so he's done the lower leagues, so National League South, worked his way up, and Mark's a Macclesfield fan, so he's in National League North, so it's quite well balanced. And yeah, it's doing really well. So yeah, really busy with it. Been on a couple of other podcasts doing appearances as well. There was a guy that I don't mind called Sober Dave. He does a lot of campaigning around sobriety. He was addicted to alcohol for years. He's turned his life around. One of his podcasts was like one of the top 10 most listened to in the country at one point. So I was on there recently, so that's going to get released in the next couple of weeks. So keep your eye out for that as well.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. Look, wish you all the best, Dan. Absolutely. And I know you're going to smash it. Everything that you're going to do.
Thank you, mate.
Definitely. I need to start watching Carlisle. So we've got a team in the National League. What do you think, Jamie?
It's not that far up the road either, mate. You know what I mean? A wee train game, we'll meet Dan.
It's the
Couple of
closest.
beers,
It's
get
the
to
closest
Carlisle.
you'll have. So it's the closest affiliation for you. But yeah,
Exactly.
Carlisle's flying. To be fair, second in the league at the minute. 23 points from the first 10 games. Got a tough run coming up at the moment, but we've signed in the summer a lad called Regan Linney. I spotted him a couple of years ago, FC United of Manchester, you know, the Phoenix club that was set up by the anti-Glazers and stuff. And he's absolutely outstanding. He scored 9 goals in his first 10. Pretty much every week I seem to be tweeting about him scoring an absolute rocket from 30 yards. It's just, yeah, it's phenomenal. So, yeah, it's good to see him doing well because obviously they had back-to-back relegations recently as well. So,
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. Aye, so Dan, thanks very much for coming on, mate. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Always.
As it always is, mate. And I'm
Thanks
sure
for
we'll see you
having me,
somewhere down the road.
lads. Yeah, thanks for having me, lads, and all the best with your podcast as well because you're absolutely smashing it. It's good to see all these guests you're getting on and ex-players and things like that. Like I say, it makes you different to everybody else. So, congratulations and keep it up.
Defo, mate, and everybody who's been watching, remember, subscribe to this channel, subscribe to Dan's channel, and we'll all be happy. So thanks very much, everybody. See you all later.